Okay, hello, good morning everybody, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to attend the IT Soft W4 Streamline for Invoices webinar. We're talking today about the solution for automatic processing of supplier invoices. The first thing to mention to you is just a very quick bit of housekeeping. You're all on mute today, and if you would like to trigger any questions that come to your mind through the course of the presentation, if you have a look in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll find a chat box, and we'll be picking up any questions or queries as we're going along. And then at the end, we deliberately plan to have some questions and answers, which will be conducted either by your team today of Paul Armstrong, myself as one of the sales consultants here at ITE Soft, and also by Craig Lindley, who's our pre-sales manager, who will be enthralling you later on with a demonstration of the product. So let's set the scene first and give you a view of some of the company credentials. We were founded in 1984. We have revenue of 25 million euros, more than 2,450 clients across all our different products, processing more than 1 billion documents per annum. We have a huge global presence and more than 250 employees, and we have agents in Australia, Benelux, Brazil, Switzerland, and Maghreb. On an overview, the key areas that we provide into the different marketplaces that we serve is a specialization in secure capture process automation, SCPA, a very snappy term, I'm sure you'll agree, but secure capture process automation for suppliers. And the excellence of supplier relationships is what we will be focusing on today. To keep the picture, what we also do is we do a very similar exercise at the front end for customer registrations, for onboarding of new members, and in the middle we have SCPA for operations, which allows us to handle workflows and processes within the organization on an internal basis. We have 3 core pillars of our digital business platform: omni-channel capture, the ability to relate to lots of different methods by which we capture data at the front end, and we'll sometimes refer to that as capture as a service. We then have the process automation, which allows us to validate and approve, but also to move information and data around an organization quickly and efficiently. And underlaying all of that is increasing levels of fraud detection to make sure that false invoices or wrong information cannot accidentally be processed. Let's set the scene with some market challenges. The key thing that we're seeing is still a preponderance of paper or manual processing in the main. Currently 66% as of a survey conducted by Ardent Partners in 2015. And just as important, when we look at the priorities that invoice teams have as to where they would like to make improvements, you can see that some 62% of companies say that they would wish to receive their invoices and capture key information more efficiently, and also that they would like to focus on invoice approval and the related workflows that go on with that. A much smaller percentage say that they're concerned about the B2B payments, for your information. And what are the pain points that companies see? Most of them view these 3 cores as their priority. The first time, 40% saying that there's a real need for real-time availability of data. At the bottom, there still is some 30% of customers and companies who say they have difficulty locating and managing their paper-based documents. And of course, there are constantly the challenges of processing high volumes with current staff levels, particularly when growth comes into the equation or when you have peaks and troughs through seasonal demand. The survey conducted by Ardent Partners in 2014 also said that there were some key benchmarks or key KPIs that companies can look at. Now, bear in mind, this relates just to manual automatic AP processing, just to manual AP processing. And it's saying that they found that manual invoice cost per invoice varied from £7 to £15. They also had a slightly staggering cost for the document storage amount. There were other things that distracted the AP team. Handling supplier calls took as much as 41% of the time, and indeed late payments, some 31% payments were made late on a manual basis, and even 8% of those actually caused a penalty. There were some instances of mistaken payments where actual cash loss was in the order of 1%, and then there are other costings relating to mail and distribution. So what are the limitations of the current marketplace solutions that are out of there? Well, the first thing is that automation rates vary greatly. And I think it's worth saying here that we're not necessarily talking just about OCR, the ability to read information on a page, but automation rates are how you then use that information through the rest of the capture process and the processing process to get through to a proper match. The main reason that those rates vary greatly is because of the accuracy of the master supplier data that's available to people. And of course, the lower the PO rate, the less chance there is for automation. There's also difficulty adapting to the varying needs of customers. And when it comes into deploying marketplace solutions as they stand today, quite a long time and severe cost of deploying a project, often related to the complex configuration of validation rules. The one thing that many customers will not do is standardize. So these systems have to be capable of being configured to the long-term rules and systems that companies have been using. And one of the reasons for that is that frequently the systems themselves are reasonably archaic in how they write their processes. They're relatively inflexible. So let's have a look at Streamline for Invoices. This relatively new product to the UK has been around in France for considerably longer. We're delighted to bring it across to the UK, and I think you'll see some of the reasons for that as we start to look at the gains that Streamline for Invoices can provide. The first thing is that using capture as a service, we can have significantly higher reading rates and linking it to supplier master data. The main reason for that is that we have done away with templates in terms of character recognition. We've done away with anchor points or any such thing. We literally scan an entire page through the front-end scanner and then interpret all of that data accurately. By extracting that information and then going off to a shared online master supplier data file, which effectively enhances and acts as a backup to your own master data, it means that we're achieving significantly higher matching rates. We also in the product have got easy and highly customizable BPM processes, which means that you can alter and change those to flex with your business as your business in turn changes. It's also delivered on an agile state-of-the-art platform. So as a client, you can choose cloud, you can choose on-premise, or a hybrid mode of the two. And the system also allows you real-time modification of the rules that you set up at the beginning for validation and for who you assign various tasks to. We're future-proofing it to make sure that it fits to the latest regulations. And a key gain on this new product is very highly adaptable and very sophisticated reporting dashboards, which not only allow you to monitor the system and how it's performing, but also to look at historical information, whether it's for clients or for suppliers, whether it's for historical management reporting, and certainly it's a huge aid to continuing to monitor your KPIs and benchmarking. This is what the system looks like in its core components. It has capture as a service at the front end, which is a machine that's able to learn as it goes, so the algorithms allow it to extend its capabilities. It's not a constant thing. You can see that it's got automatic data extraction, whether the source is coming in by paper, by email, by EDI, or these days also from mobile platforms or from the Internet of Things. And using the ITsoft online supplier data, we're able to give that extra layer of validation. We then go through to supplier invoice matching. This can be device independent, and the image is stored so that people working within a relevant ERP system have the ability to see the image through a link. So that's reconciliation, validation, and assign. Using a variety of different ERP systems. These are just a few that we work with. You've got 4 there and another 3 there, but in actual fact, over the years, we've integrated with many, many more than just that. And that has the capability then of exporting to the ERP for payment once it's approved. In the event of discrepancies, where perhaps there's a price, quantity, or perhaps additional carriage, some other charges on the invoice which don't show on the PO, we can of course push it then through a combination of coding and approval so that the workflow will handle that, giving email notifications to users, escalation after a period of time, and that flow of workflow can either be sequential or parallel, and those are all within the rules that you can set up and then monitor and manage yourselves. Finally, around this all-encompassing system, we're able to offer a supplier portal which has got significant gains for clients, where suppliers are able to check the status of their own invoices. They're able to upload new invoices into the system directly, and they're also able to do a reconciliation of payments against the invoices that they've raised. So all of these aspects are designed to take away a workload from your AP team. You determine which suppliers gain access, and you can of course remove that capability at any stage if it's being abused. Most of our clients say it's a huge productivity gain. And then additionally, there's dashboard, which we've just referred to in terms of reporting capability. So if we look at Capture as a Service in a little bit more detail, how does it work and what are its key benefits? Well, we're talking now about moving to not just depend on your own master supplier data, but to look at collective identification. So we're effectively, as an underpin to your own data, providing a pool of client vendors in a repository. At the moment, we've got over 600,000 suppliers optimized, and this means that not only their name, but also items such as their company registration number, their VAT number, their telephone, and other key aspects of validation are actually sitting in our repository available to you. And therefore, if there is insufficient information in your own master supplier data, or perhaps information that doesn't match to the invoice, we can go away and actually offer you the opportunity to use that information from elsewhere. And as that information is enhanced, so it means that you have the access to that as it goes along. So the customer benefits are quite clear. The secure data accuracy, we never touch your master data, but we're supplementing it effectively. It leads to improved supplier identification, and it becomes a valuable repository on vendors. In terms of reading, Capture as a Service is both identification and reading. We've mentioned automatic machine learning. Our own teams in turn continue to optimize the reading capability. And if this is being delivered, for example, on the cloud, then those changes, those improvements are regularly being updated for the benefit of all of our clients. There's also a real-time consideration of regulatory developments, so that makes sure that we can keep the platform up to date. So you have improved throughput rates because of improved learning, cost reductions to clients because we're undertaking a lot of that optimization for you, and an up-to-date platform. When we look at Streamline for Invoices and the key features, what the target is to eliminate manual data entry. Some of the features within the product is auto cost calculations. So while you're coding and approving, by making a change to the value of the invoices that we've seen and captured, so it will automatically cost out the remaining balance, which can then be coded to a code of your choice. Our recognition rates over the using these advantages are greater than 95%. Our OCR rate, which a lot of other companies will claim as being 100%, We also agree with 100%. However, what we're interested in is the throughput. So the more significant the recognition rate, the greater the throughput. The second area of the product is how we can accelerate the management of those invoices by using parallel tasks, the monitoring to identify bottlenecks in the system, and how it's a much more collaborative and social capability within the system rather than being isolated in terms of paper flows. Deployment time is reduced because it's a highly configurable process. When the system is opened up, effectively it's a working system. It also has a reusable interface to other processes, and thanks to the power of the BPM, or Business Process Management engine within it, it's very agile. You can modify assignment rules by the operators yourselves without anything other than the appropriate permission and access to the system. Finally, and this is really important for business cases, it also means that there are reduced deployment costs. Minimal installation, self-managed customizations, frequently deployment on the cloud and therefore no IT overhead, and any transitions between versions and systems managed by ourselves. So at this stage, what I'd like to do is ask you to sit back, relax, and enjoy a demonstration from my colleague, Mr. Craig Lindley, who is our pre-sales manager. And Craig, please take over.
Perfect, thank you very much. Okay, this demonstration does get relatively complex in parts, just the way the invoices are moved around the business. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to deal with some invoices for an imaginary company, Acme UK. So we have a number of layers here within this organization. So one of the invoices we're going to process today comes in without any purchase order. So a non-PO invoice that needs coding and approval, and we're going to send this to multiple departments. So this will go out for parallel approval before a final level of approval. So just to show you this UK context, we may refer back to this later. So the examples we're going to see today, we're not going to see all 7 due to the time restrictions that we have. We're going to actually process 5 invoices. The first one is going to be a WPDG without purchase order invoice. So we're going to show one of those. Then we're going to show a manual matching invoice. So what happens when there's no order number on the invoice, and there needs to be. So we can either reject it back to the supplier, or we can look it up. So we're going to kind of look that up. The next what we're going to see is we're going to see a 2-stage invoice. So where we have an invoice and we get where we have an order and we get 2 separate invoices for that. So those are scenarios we're going to look to today. If we need to, we'll come back to this slide. Okay, so if we log on to the capture component as Sarah from Acme UK, the stream we're interested in is invoices, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to capture some local PDFs. So the OmniCapture channel has the ability to capture from email, from XML, for example, EDI feeds, connects to a fax server, an MFD, but we're just going to, for demonstration purposes, we're going to capture our invoices from some local PDFs. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the test cases we want to look at the moment, and we're going to press capture. So this is the batch that we're going to send across to the server. So this is the non-PO invoice and a couple of the with PO invoices, the first parts. So if we press send now, yes, we confirm we would like to send that batch across to the server. So what's actually happening is this batch is being uploaded via SFTP to the capture server, which sits in the cloud. We're then going to OCR all these invoices. We're going to identify the suppliers based on what we find on the invoices, and we're also going to link that back to we have shared learning. So if, for example, you use RS components, it may be that the details you have in your finance system for RS components are not what's on the invoice. So for example, an email address may be on there for head office and a phone number for head office, but in your finance system it's going to be a phone number for Steve's direct landline or Steve's email address from RS components. So we supplement that with all that we know about RS Components. Internally, we kind of link the two suppliers together. So whenever we get invoices from RS Components, we look at what you hold on your finance system and what we hold about that supplier. And this means that we get a really fantastic rate of, as Paul said, 95% plus recognition. Most of the market competitors tend to do around 90%. So that may sound like only a 5% increase, but in reality, 90% is 1 out of 10 invoices stop. 95% is 1 out of 20 stop. So that 5% doubles our recognition rate versus competitors. So we've now captured our batch. We've given it a moment, so the software should have by now picked up all the invoice details. So what we're going to do is we're going to log on as Sarah from Acme Corporation. And what we can immediately see here is that we have ourselves, or our department has 3 tasks to do of the 4 invoices on the system. So 1 has exported already, so this is matched to a purchase order. There are no discrepancies, and that's exported out now, and that will be put into your finance system. So this is all ready to go, ready to pay. The other invoices require some looking at, so that's why they're in our work queue. Okay, so let's deal with the most complex one first. We're going to deal with the WDG no PO invoice. So if we choose to process this, we are taken to a copy of the invoice. We can zoom in if we require, look around the invoice, grab text off the invoice, all nice things. But initially we get some errors here. So there are a number of errors that this has not been coded up anywhere. And also there's no GL date. So we can click on the error to take us directly to the field. So for example, we're going to choose a general ledger date of today. This accounting date can be set to the past if you still have that posting period open in your finance system, but typically that would be today. So the next thing we can do is we have a limited number of GL accounts here. So let's just choose one. And what we're going to do for this demonstration, so we've gone to Sarah and we're going to send it out to the business in a moment for approval. So just change tax GB20. We're going to split this line. So this line is for 3,450. So what we can say is we're going to put 2,450 to one department. And if we add a new line, that will automatically calculate the outstanding balance and supplement it here. There is a formula bar as well, so if you need to split it across lots of different lines, you can reference the cells, kind of like Excel. So what we're actually going to do here, it's not for one particular service, it's for many. So we're going to change the accounting service and the production unit. So these areas are managed by 2 different people. So when we check this, when we send this invoice out for approval, it's going to need to go in parallel to multiple people. So if we just do a little health check, there are no warnings. We can then press validate. Would I really like to validate? Am I finished with this invoice? Yes, I am. So that invoice now is dropping out of our task list, and that will be sent in parallel. Actually, it will be sent first to James. One of the things we like to do in demonstrations is we'll initially put some coding on the invoice, and then it goes to a management accountant to check that that coding is okay. You don't have to have that step, but typically a lot of people do. So that invoice now, it's still in someone's queue, it's pending management accounting. So if we actually just sign off as Sarah for the moment, and we sign on as James, who is the kind of financial controller, management accountant, and he has one task to do. So there's the invoice again. He may check the code in here and see that that is incorrect, it's for a different account, or the line needs to be split down further. Or in reality, he could just say he's happy with the accounts payable job, and this can go out to the business for approvals. So now management accounting has been done on this invoice. This is going to be sent out in parallel to 2 people. This is going to go to Jason and John concurrently, who both need to approve it before it will be paid. So as we can see here, it is actually pending parallel validation. So this is useful because sequential validation tends to be quite slow because it has to go to person A, then person B, then person C, and the duration of the invoice to kind of be paid is a summation of all their times, whereas if it's in parallel, the time is just whoever took the longest. So let's just log off here, and we'll log on first as Jason. So Jason has one task to do. He has to validate the part of the invoice that's relevant for his cost center. We also have the ability in real time to do chat. So there's the level of notification here. We can view everything that's happened along the way. And there's a real-time chat feature as well. So Jason and John could potentially both be in the same invoice at the same time, doing their relevant parts, and effectively be chatting to each other. Happy with my cost. So we can send a nice little comment across there. Once that is done, let me just hide the chat window, and we're going to validate our part of the invoice. So we have no tasks at this point. So Jason has done his part of the approvals, and because it was for 2 cost centers, John also has to validate his part as well. The reason John can see 3 tasks is because he potentially can pick up and work on these with PO documents. He's not going to do so, he's just going to take care of the with PO document. So here we can see, for example, in the comments that Jason was happy with his, and we can put that we're also happy. So now that we are happy with the cost, sorry, my browser's just frozen. We're going to want to validate our task. Apologies, my connection seems to be a little bit slow. I have pressed validate. Let me just wait. Do you really want to validate? Absolutely we do. Okay, so the FI invoice now has been approved by everyone, and it finally goes to the CFO for final validation. So if we log on as, oops, sorry, it's John, lots of actors in this today, and we do our final level of approval. So after it goes out in parallel, to lots of people, it actually goes sequentially to the CFO for final validation. I did mention this is quite a complex workflow. The others are not as complex. And it does not have to be this complex for most people. Just in a demo scenario, we like to show that we can do parallel validation as well as sequential validation. So I'm just going to validate this regardless of what comes next. Yes, we do. Confirm. Okay, so that shows as validated now. In a moment, that is going to show as exported. It's just going to export out of the system, and we'll show that again in a moment. So that's the FI process. It is relatively convoluted in this demo, but it just demonstrates all the various features that we can provide. Most people would not go to a management accountant first. They would just go from accounts payable in parallel, and typically they would not have kind of CFO approval at the end as well. They would just go in parallel and export when everyone has done their part. So let's log on as Sarah now, and we can see how we would deal with purchase order based invoices. So what we'll do here is we'll pick up this RS components invoice. So this particular invoice, we've identified the purchase order. We found the supplier first, we found the purchase order. That's quoted there, M106080. We still have to set a GL date. This can be defaulted to today, which to be honest, most people tend to do. The next thing we can see is the quantities we have here. So when we find the order, we drop in the order lines. So the order lines here, we have a quantity of 300, 1, 10 and 4. The invoice is only a partial invoice, so it's not all of the quantity. So what we can say here is this invoice that we have only refers to 200 of that order quantity. So we do get a number of errors here. The reason we get these errors is they're just warnings, not errors, sorry. The reason being that the unit price is not really 0.05, it's 0.054. Likewise, this 0.13, we display it as 2 decimal places, but we actually capture the full decimal places. So there's a slight discrepancy there between the calculations that are made. But other than that, they are just warnings. So we're going to validate that. Yes, we do. And we've matched that invoice to the order successfully. So what we'll do in a moment is we will look at this other invoice, which should be for a purchase order, but no purchase order is actually quoted on this invoice. So we're going to look at how we handle that scenario. Okay. So the warnings that come up is there's not a valid purchase order on this, and as we can see under customer order reference, they do not have one. So we have a number of ways we could handle this. The first would be we could reject it back to the supplier. They've not quoted a purchase order, so this invoice is not going to get paid. But we're in a good mood today, so what we're going to do is we're going to go hunting ourselves. So if we go to the matching tab at the top, we can choose to look at all the orders and all the goods receipts we've had for that supplier. So it just so happens that we have 2 purchase orders, M10608 with 1 line, and we have M10607, which we have 3 lines there. And it looks similar to what we have. So if we just say that we're going to take these 3 lines, they're the lines that we're going to match to today. Actually, it's not. It is, sorry, quantity 50, there we go. So if we add those into our invoice now, and we just do a little check, set the tax rates of those lines. The tax rates can actually be read from the order as well. So if the tax information is on the order, we can read it from there. If it's on the invoice, we can also read it from there. And if it's neither, we're going to have to tell the software what tax code we should use. Okay, so we have to set the GL date again, and everything else should just be a warning regarding their unit prices. So if we just validate, so all those tasks have been dealt with. But if we look, these are pending management accounting. So this is not necessarily typical. Once you match the invoice to the order, that can export for payment. In this particular scenario, a recent customer had a requirement that certain invoices from certain suppliers, such as RS Components, were must-see. So they always stopped potentially to Treasury to see, to authorize the payment. So these invoices must be seen. So what we're going to now is the person that must see them is John. And this is not typical in the UK. There are special circumstances where this does happen, of which this demo shows one of them. So we press validate, and that invoice will now be released for payment. We'll then release this second invoice, and then we'll finally confirm that all these invoices have actually released and exported out of the system. And again, at this point, we can add comments, we can add anything to the history of this document, so that'll be retained forever. So it could be that you know, it shouldn't really be on this purchase order, it should be on another one. We can filter that information back, but we're not going to do that today. We're just going to validate. And yes, those warnings are fine. So as we can see, the accounting is successful. That will change to exported in a moment. Okay, so in the interests of time, what we shall do next, rather than bringing this fourth invoice, we'll just have a quick look at the reporting side of things. So we use ClickSense Desktop to navigate the data mart for this software. We provide a number of reports out of the box, but more can be added as per your requirements. So initially we can kind of see how many invoices in progress throughout the system, how many we've received in any given period. We can drill into all these numbers and see the graphs change. That's all very nice. How many were rejected, how many were not. We have some useful things like so these are invoices for certain suppliers where they are nearing their payment terms. So they're out in the business for discrepancies, and very soon they're going to come up to their limit. We're going to effectively breach our conditions with the supplier, and we're going to effectively get in trouble. So they're people that we need to chase. Organizational performance. So we have things here. So we may be having a big drive for invoices with purchase orders. So all invoices must have purchase orders against them. So at the minute we can see that 74%, 75% of our invoices are coming in with purchase order. When we have a purchase order, we can see reasons why the invoices do not match with the purchase orders. For example, if they have additional costs that we've not considered in our order, those will be routed out to the business rather than paid direct. So that's worth noting about. Should the costs be on the order in the first place? If there are price discrepancies, how many invoices are we getting with price discrepancies where we've had an order? And how many where we're getting quantity discrepancies? So, and again, all these statistics we can fully drill in, do nice data modeling on. We can start to see how many invoices we've processed per month, not very many on our demo platform. And when we click on various periods, we can see who the main suppliers are. So, and then we can drill in by supplier and see what days they sent us how many invoices. So, you know, we can include and exclude our top suppliers as required. We can search, find people who's sending the most invoices, who send the most invoices with problems. So this is really, really useful to find out, you know, if your system is not getting the throughput you require purely because of problems on the invoices versus orders, for example, you can see who your worst performers are. So we can see again things like disputes. So if we have a price discrepancy, we can see how many we're getting per month, how many disputes we're having, what the reasons for the disputes are, the financial amount that's in these invoices, you know, that we are disputing. So that's all useful for accruals processes, things like that. We can see our average payment time. As it is a demo platform, it's not particularly fantastic. So 28 days is not brilliant. We have lots of customers that aim for sub 2 days, so 2 days or less. Reception time. So this is effectively when it's out in the business from when it's hit our software. So 2 days is not too bad. And again, we can kind of view by supplier. We can drill into this as much as we like, search for individual invoices, certain suppliers. That's all very nice. We can see the kind of recognition rate that we're getting. So for example, at the moment on our test platform, we've only been getting 87%. So we'd like that a little bit higher. So the reading rate per field, we're 90% or above for the most part here, 90% here. We would want to see that slightly better. We do have a little bar here that we say that not only do we identify the supplier, we also have to read all the fields that we want to send to our finance system, all the dates, all the amounts, the tax values. And if we're hitting less than 70%, that is where we need to step in and see what's happening with those invoices. And finally, we can see a list of invoices that have been paid. So we can search these. We can, again, you can search by supplier, you can drill in, drop down, all nice things. You can find out what's been paid, when it's due to be paid. So it's useful for reporting purposes as well. And list of invoices that have been approved but not yet paid. So there are lots and lots and lots of statistics. And this is all real time on what's going through the platform right now. So it allows you to kind of monitor what's happening on the platform and make adjustments when necessary. So that's actually everything for the demo. So at this point, Jazz, you can take control.
Thank you very much, Craig. Very happy with that. That looked really, really good. And we have been capturing a couple of questions as we go along. So now is the time to also throw any other questions at us that you'd like to. Please use that chat box in the bottom right-hand corner. But what you'll also see on the slide here is just a few of the customers that use our various solutions. A lot of names that you'll recognize, and this list is by no means exhaustive. As we said earlier, some 650 customers use our various systems. If you would like some further contact after today's webinar has come to a close, then you have an email address there, jst@itesoft.com, or our website, www.itesoft.com, because essentially we want to say thank you very much for today. And if you'd like to register for additional speed trials, which is done on a one-to-one basis, or a consultant visit, you can do that through our website. But let's quickly have a look at the questions that have come in. The first question that we were asked today was, how many invoices a day would an AP person be able to handle with Streamline? It's a really good, interesting question. For manual processing, the various surveys give us a median of something in the order of 40 to 60 invoices per person per day. In my own experience, I've seen that go as low as 28, and I've seen it as high as 82 for manual processing. But honestly, with Streamline for Invoices and our other systems, we're looking in excess of 200 invoices per person per day. And some of our best performers in the UK are hitting as high as 350 invoices per person per day. So you can see that there are vast economies of scale, vast efficiency improvements that can be made on the basis of that system implementation. The second question that we've been asked today, and I'd like to ask Craig to provide just a little bit more detail on this one, is what actually is capture as a service? It's a new term. What does it mean?
It is, yes. It's a little soft. It's a component that will pick up data from various streams that you give it authorization to do so. So we can effectively poke into your email server for a given email address and pick up emails from there. We can poke into any EDI feeds or fax feeds that you give us authorization for. And the other part of Capture as a Service is that from the back of that, we maintain all the supplier data to do with all the suppliers all our customers have ever seen. We know about those suppliers, and we regularly keep that up to date with, the bank detail changes and all those kind of things. So we take care of the matching as well for the most part. So there's a lot there with Capture as a Service, but that's only possible through to the amount of customers we have, the amount of suppliers that we've seen, that we can offer that.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you. And the third and final question that we're going to ask today, and I love this question, it nearly always comes up on most of our webinars. It's 4 simple words. How much is it? And the answer to that is, of course, it does depend on your volumes, depends on your situation, but we will be delighted to give you an indication of pricing on a one-to-one basis. So please just use the option to contact us, talk to our sales consultants, and at no obligation get a feel for the costs involved. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings our seminar today, our webinar today, to a natural close. We thank you very much indeed for your attendance and for your questions, and would encourage you just to keep in touch with us. There are additional resources available, such as speed trials. largely held by Craig, I would add, but certainly on a personal one-to-one basis, and each of our consultants will be more than happy to engage with you on a visit. So thank you for your time, and we hope that on this lovely day outside, you have a good day yourselves. Thank you very much.